Then that's the way it is. It's not seen as a major
Yeah, but
problem.
we're dealing with a charter that has problems.
Yeah.
Who says?
I
Well,
do.
we know in looking at it,
Working with it, I've come
we've been
across
charged.
inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what they are.
Interpreting it and asked to be interpreted by different boards. I've come across inconsistencies and things that conflict with the general
Sophie has
laws.
something she wants to say.
Mary,
Yes.
Mary?
Hi. Thank you. So, I mean, I'm gonna step back to, I think that we should all together, I mean, our first step should be to do what Heidi's plan was to, pull it apart. And then we can start to see, some of it may not be, there really are substantive issues. There are big issues. I mean, I get, Brian's point. I do think that in this town, from people I've spoken with, and people are like, why don't we have town meetings still? Why don't we have a mayor? I mean, those are real issues that may come out. I think putting a survey before we've gone through each of the articles, again, cart before the horse. I really think we need to kind of pull out, are there real pieces that we're kind of just disputing as a group? And I think that will help kind of inform as we move forward. But I still think we should do what, Heidi's plan was to, as our group kind of really delve into it together. I think our natural conversations, we do reflect many boards across this town. And I think we have conversations with people that, have our similar interests. And I think that's going to help us as we develop this. Then I do think it makes sense to have those workshops around substantive issues, because then we will have more buy-in, if we go through each article. I think the precincts, going back and dividing it by precincts and we're going to find ourselves having the same conversation again and again and again. So I do think by article, and to be transparent and to get the buy-in, we'll post those. Now, it is true. You have, as Heidi said, I sat in town meeting and you can see people get heated about the police station or whatever it is. And they said, we've had meeting after meeting after meeting and no one showed up. And then all of a sudden at town meeting, it's not that they don't care. I think that, there's a distraction there, Brian. I think you can put the survey and everything else and then people are going to get diverted. I think if we do the work up front, we kind of will understand pretty clearly what the issues are that are going to get people hot, if you will. And then we start to kind of pull for each article. Again, I don't think we should go through grammar. I think we can do that. I don't think anybody's going to want it there. I think we can kind of deal with that ourselves, but I think we do it in this process. We got to do what we can to hold. There are issues. There are issues that, I saw right here, we don't have any reflections on the fact that we have, we're on the internet and we talk about bulletin boards. Those are virtual. So there are certain things we have to clean up, to get to the 21st century. But I think this process, I think we got to give ourselves some credit that we are a reflection, and then see where we are as a group once we finish going through the articles. That would be my thoughts.
Could I make one comment in response to that? I've been on the planning board for 1.5 years, so I'm a very new member. I'm a neophyte in this whole process, to be honest. But one of the things that I've noticed rather dramatically is that every 2 weeks we have a meeting, and somewhere between half a dozen and 12 people show up at our meeting, and they have specific development interests in whatever the proposals are in front of us, but it's a tiny fraction of the town. And then every few months, we have a workshop about the 10-year master plan, and an entirely different group shows up. If we're lucky, one person from the select board and 2 people from the planning board show up, but dozens of people from around town who care about this or that show up, and they're all different. That very few of them are the same people who show up in front of us every 2 weeks, and none of them are the developers, the engineers, the land sellers who show up in front of us every 2 weeks. So it's a very different group, and that's because the planning board is really the planning review committee for other people's plans every 2 weeks, but we also have this responsibility to do the actual future planning for the town. And that in turn is, every 10 years. And so it's a very different group. So I totally agree with the idea that we need to get the input from the majority of people in town, and not the few who have special interests in this, that, or the other thing.
I'm going to say, Steve, having been involved in many groups, as I've said, but most recently the school department, and having attended school committee meetings for 30 plus years. Same thing as the planning board. People who do not have kiddos in the school, I'm going to say other than Terry Ham, who has attended school committee meetings. It's pretty much only parents. It's pretty much a handful. And it will only be when it's something that their child's going to be recognized at, or if there's an immediate problem.
Right.
Things are going well, we don't see anybody. So I think probably each group is probably faced with the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, we want to see the majority of the citizens, not just the minority on issue by issue. That's my point, and I think that's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. And I think when we go to town meeting, we have 300 plus elected town meeting members who are there to represent their
Right.
constituents, and are supposed to be making those decisions at town meeting. And I think we've been charged with a task to review this. It's disheartening to hear, the 2010 group may have lost an appetite to go through with all those changes. Let's hope that a year from now, we're not feeling the same way. But I think Sean McGinnis, so I'll just call him Sean, had given us sort of a timeline at our last meeting. And so the dates that I sent out for potential meetings went until April, because that's when he said, we would be kind of coming to a decision in April. What are we bringing to town meeting in June? So we've got a lot of work to do. And I wonder two things. One, about a survey. We are a group without any money. So are there funds required for a survey? And what are we surveying? Are we looking at the different articles, asking people to respond to, or in general? Do you know we have a charter document? Have you read it? What would you like us to address?
So Heidi, how about this? What if we had 6 workshops and invited 50 town meeting members to each workshop? The 6 workshops could be for one, the appropriate fraction of the town meeting members. 6 times 50 is pretty close to 300. If we had the 6 workshops and invited those town meeting members, all of a sudden we would now be hearing the opinions of the citizens, because that's whom they represent.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
might be a better way than precinct by precinct.
You would assume, but if you had 6 different workshops for each precinct, I mean, you'd have to have.
But it wouldn't have to be by precinct. You could invite the 50 town meeting members from across the town each time. And you'd be talking to the whole town every time, but you'd have a different batch of town meeting members at each one. You might really learn something about the town that way.
But you're saying cover everything in one workshop.
No, you could pick, each workshop could be 2 or 3 articles, and maybe we'd have to have more workshops. But if we did it by town meeting members, because they represent the citizens in town, we'd get a lot of input about the broad cross section of town that way.
Yeah.
Can I
may
make a
wanna just have it
suggestion?
Open.
It sounds
Sarah?
like there's a couple of options with collecting feedback from the people who are either town meeting members or residents of the town. In terms of what our job is, it sounds like our job is to look at the existing town charter and determine if there are things that need to be corrected. For that reason, I'd like to see what was that red line document, if you still have that, Anthony, if you could send to people to say, what are the problems? Now I understand that there is an issue with having a town charter that is either not up to date or inaccurate in its description, because that's not workable for the town. So that's one of our jobs, is to do that. The other, to Brian's point, I think is a valid point. If we're not hearing concerns from people, why are we assuming that there's a problem? Maybe there is a way, after we spend some time with this, to construct some questions that we put out in a survey to anybody. We've seen surveys done at the town level before on different topics for different plans. Make it available, publish it in Facebook, put it out there, get as much input as we can, and then take that to determine whether people think, I hear lots of complaints just, on Facebook, for example, that it's not anything we can do anything about. That Dartmouth Helping Dartmouth group it's crazy, some of the things that people put out there that they, you know, are, can somebody speak to the finance committee about the orange trash bags? Okay, yeah, we'll get right on that. It's just a function of people not understanding, as everybody has said here. And my comment about bringing this to the town meeting, why I understand it wasn't done before, I think it has to be presented well. I looked at Doug Roscoe's PowerPoint that he did on the last one. It was done very well. It was, you know, it outlined all of the recommendations that were made. I wasn't involved in town meeting at the time, and so I don't know what happened to not have that go through. But if our job is to say, one, is this a workable document? What's wrong with it? What do we need to do? I think we have to hear from Anthony on that, because you know what the laws are and what's changed and what needs to be corrected. That's kind of an easy thing. I agree with Sean McDonald, you know, package that in a way to present that to people and let them hear it. And then once we know how we're going to get information, we can decide whether we do workshops, who comes to the workshops, whether we do a survey, whatever that's more of a process thing that I think we could do that later. That would be my suggestion, Heidi.
Here's the thing is, well, first of all, it's an easy thing maybe to sell it. It's not an easy thing to put it
Okay.
together. I've got to do a
No.
lot of more work because that was done on an old document that was over 10 years old. So that
Okay.
there's been charter changes since then. So I have to go through that again and do it. And you know, I don't want to be sending you something that makes corrections to the cemetery commission when we no longer have a cemetery commission, for instance.
Okay.
So just pulling out the old document, but this committee is asked to do this because the laws do change over 10 years. I need to go now and look at what's changed in the last 10 years and go through it again with that eye. So the charter is a living document. It's made to change as circumstances change. Like I think it was Heidi was talking about making it current with, you know, the way we post meetings now. We don't have a bulletin board out front anymore. We do it all through the website. So to say that the charter needs changing isn't saying it was a horrible document at the time it was drafted. It's just saying that a lot of things have changed since then. And that's why they want a charter review committee every 10 years. I'm not saying that we need to say it's a terrible thing. We need to get rid of the planning board, Steve, make the select board the plan, you know what I mean? Things like that. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about going through, making sure it's consistent with current law, consistent with current practice. And then if you see other things along the way, more substantial changes such as town administrator having some authority over people who work down the hall, but he can't tell them what to do because they don't report to him, things like that. That's things that you should be focusing on. But
Right.
just to say Joe Smith down the street doesn't have any issue with the town charter, there's nothing wrong with it, that doesn't make sense, because there is things that could make this a better document. There's no question. It needs an update. There's no question whatsoever.
Well,
99.9% of the people in the town have no idea what the town charter is or what it does.
well,
That's why they picked us to do this.
Yeah, well, I disagree with that. I don't see how you could possibly put out a document ultimately and not ask the residents of the town if they have any issues with the current document.
There's a difference.
I don't understand how you can do it.
There's a big difference between having issues with something and fixing something that is broken, even if most people don't understand that it's broken. The data, we're arguing popularity or understanding versus necessity of making sure the charter functions under the Mass General laws. I mean, those are.
Oh, I mean, who could argue with that? I think it should be.
And fix the Scrivener's errors and align the document with what is actually legally necessary. Polling people is great, and I'm all for the input, but worrying about whether we amend or propose changes simply because people are ignorant of the need for the changes is a complete waste of time and effort. We fix the practical problems first, then worry about polling people about what we might want to change in composition later.
That makes sense.
Let me
Yeah.
Can I ask this question? And this is mostly to Anthony and to Sean. the current town charter that you can access on the website, is that the most recent and correct charter with all the change, with any of the changes that are made from the last time?
Well, you asked that because I was gonna go look at that to see. I was just gonna go look at a couple town meeting votes to see if it was changed, but I don't know. I don't know, Sean. You probably knew that. I don't.
It is. We have a service. It's at that E-code 360. So the town clerk after meeting, after the attorney general has approved any a town meeting warrant and the decisions, they input the information into the charter and the bylaws. And so that is up to date, but that's also the Word document. I downloaded that. That's what I sent you. So it's the same thing. So
Oh, so you got that from E-code, from
Yeah.
General Code?
Yep.
Yeah, General Code does a good job. They've done a great job with our bylaws.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
the first and I think that's the first and foremost thing we have to start off with, knowing that the document we're working out is the document instead of something that, oh, wait a minute, we missed it. So that's the most important thing.
yeah, it is.
Okay. That's like stepping on, going on the yellow brick road, making sure the first place you step on is a yellow brick.
Yes. So that being said, we have a charge and it is to review this document. And I think it will be helpful to look at what Anthony has as a red line copy, but also the Word document that Sean sent to us does have a listing of, under each article, amended by town meeting with a date and approved by voters with a date. So if a change was made, we know there's some changes from 2015 in this document. April town meeting would be April 7th of 2015. That looks like the most of the, there's another one from 2012. But that document does at least let us see when changes may have occurred previously. So I want to go back because I think we have a need to figure out the format and process of these workshops, which is separate from our task and still on our task under the agenda item under new business, which was review the charter materials sent to us from Sean. But then he's got some other. So B is discuss Collins Center support for charter review. So I did want to ask Sean, what is that?
So, in order to do this, I thought we might need some support from a consultant, really just to help us as a group to outline the process and come up with a method to really, you've talked about it tonight, which I think is great, kind of taking it a piece at a time. There's some consultants out there, particularly like the Collins Institute is one that they've helped other towns with their charter reviews. So, we don't want to try and reinvent the wheel if we can just have some support from, a consultant. I thought that would be helpful. And particularly, I asked them to just kind of draft, a proposal in which they just provide us with some direction and support and then outline saying, okay, you should focus on this to begin with, and then transition, go from A to B to C. And that's probably the most effective way to do things. So I asked them to do that. And now they can provide more support where they're more heavily involved. But, we have Anthony, and he certainly knows the charter much better than, a consultant would coming in. It's really, I just wanted to make sure our methodology was correct and we weren't missing anything. And seeing as how they do these for a number of towns, I thought it might be helpful. So they just submitted a proposal today. Actually, I got it, so I'll share it. I didn't really get a chance to look at it thoroughly. The cost isn't extreme. I think I'm looking here just on the level, it's like $7,500. But I'll look at see what they provide. So I'll have that, put together. I called another consultant too to get 2 proposals. So I'll present those at the next meeting.
So Sean, can I ask you?
But if, the committee decides, hey, we don't want to go in this direction, that's fine. Or, we can have them into a meeting just to say, what would you provide? Tell us in detail, and then you can decide.
So Sean, just can I ask you a question? If they did the work that you're describing, would that be primarily helping Anthony sort out the nuts and bolts of our existing charter and getting all the commas, periods, grammar, and different things where state law has changed, getting all that sorted out to be perfect, which I think we've agreed earlier in the meeting is item 1 that we have to accomplish? Or would they be also talking to us about potential substantive changes that different ones of us might want to recommend or not? And that would be like phase 2. I mean, are you asking the consultants to do phase 1 with the nuts and bolts or phase 2 with the substantive changes?
I asked them initially just to help us lay out a methodology to do a thorough charter review. Now, they can just say, here's a framework that you should follow, and here it is, and we'll help you with that. Or, we can say, we need some direction and leadership. We want someone to come in and spearhead the whole effort, go through the nuts and bolts, and also recommend major changes. So they'll do whatever we want them to do, and
Okay.
whatever we can
For
afford.
price?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's our job to assign them what they're responsible for and what we will then do on our own.
Right. I mean, ultimately, as a committee, you make the decision, but they can lay it all out for you, or they can give you what they recommend. But,
Right.
you know the town better than they would. So they're really just going to give you a generic framework that fits, state statute and what other towns are doing that are similar in size and scope.
If I could weigh in, my bias would be to push them if they get some more information about using their services. Just from a personal experience, I was the chairman of the Special Legislative Commission to study pancreatic cancer, and we modeled that committee. Literally, the legislation was modeled after the Ovarian Cancer Study Commission. They, for some reason, got state funding to hire consultants. We were not given that funding, and it was a hell of an experience in the difference between how they were able to approach it and how we were able to approach it based solely on the 15 of us, and there was 3 MDs on the board. But even with that expertise, it was much harder to get off the ground and get going to produce the final report when they have almost a turnkey operation. Now, again, I know it's not the same thing that we're discussing, but I think that it's similar enough that I'd like to hear more and explore this option, because it could make our lives a heck of a lot easier to get to the final result and put it before town meeting.
Yeah, so I can ask them to come in to the next meeting and just to kind of present their layout. But also, I think in the information I sent, there's a link to the town of Amherst did a charter review that they just finished. The Collins Center, who provided this proposal, did theirs, and I think you can see they kept meticulous notes and they posted them online, which is great. But you can kind of see the format that they followed and how they went about things, and there's a lot of information on there. So you might find that useful to help you walk through and see how the process works.
All right, I'm in a meeting.
I would recommend that we look at the town of Amherst stuff. That's a fairly sophisticated town, so that's probably a good idea to have a look at.
I think they're sophisticated.
I believe the link that Sean had sent us before was for the town of Attleboro,
Oh, did I send
North
you?
Attleboro, North Attleboro.
North Attleboro.
Okay, so I'll
But I have the Collins Center presentation, which I can send out to everybody right now.
That would be great, Terry.
Yeah.
Terry, do you want to send a link to the Charter Commission, or do you want me to send it? Do you have to?
Why don't you send it, Sean? I'm trying to find the addresses, so it'll be easy for you to do if you have it.
Problem?
Are you looking for the Charter Commission page from Amherst?
Yeah, I have it here. I'm just sending the link.
Okay. Because right now it's an archival page, so.
No. Oh yeah, it's got all the information, and if you go to the right, it's got the agendas and minutes and meeting packets and
Yep.
handouts. So
So is someone going to send a link for that?
I just sent it.
Oh, okay.
In our previous meeting, we had talked about holding our meetings to about 90 minutes. we have about 15 more minutes together tonight. And we haven't really gotten into our work, but I think we have really, I think the good news is we've really kind of hashed out what it is that we think we thought we were going to be doing and how much more detailed this work may need to be, given what Anthony shared with us about the red line document. I think that it would be interesting to see the red line document, and I feel badly that Anthony feels that he has to look at the red line document to see what the changes are based on our what is on the website, what is our current charter. I would assume that they've got to be pretty darn close, and if he felt confident and comfortable enough to send us the red line charter, that would at least give us some background information of where to start. You know, what has he looked at for grammatical errors? I mean, I feel like we need to be committed and all into this process. And not looking back at the 2010 committee and what they could accomplish, but we've been charged to look at this commission, this document every 10 years. We happen to be the 2020 group, and like 2020, it's going to be perhaps more difficult than other groups. But I think the town meeting should have an appetite for changes, because since our town meeting, our spring town meeting, which had to be postponed and then held virtually and on a Saturday, which is, you know, unheard of, things have changed. Lots of things have changed. And I think we have to grab the bull by the horns and look at this document, and at the end of our term, which could be about 2 years from now, be able to say we tried to make the grammatical and substantial changes as we were charged to do.
Heidi, I completely agree with that. And I would like to suggest that we delegate to Anthony and whomever else, those of you who know more than I do about who should work out the grammar, get that done, but let that be about 20% of our time, plus or minus. And we should then spend 80% of our time on substantive future changes or decisions that we don't want to make future changes, whatever it is. I'm not prejudging what we do or don't want to do, but we,
Yes.
9 people going through the red lines of the commas, periods, parentheses doesn't make any sense. We should delegate that to a group who can really do it. And when they come back and think they have it done, we can take a thorough look at it and see if we find any changes. But let's make that be 20% of our next 2 years and spend the 80% on the things that may or may not be substantive changes, but either they'll be very conscious decisions that we don't want to change anything, or we do. But let's spend 80% on the substantive stuff.
Excellent. That being said, I think, Sean, if you can get anyone from the Collins group, the Collins Center, and or if you contact anyone else that could help us, I think if we could have a representative at our next meeting, just tell us a little bit about what they can do for us. And you probably would have the best knowledge as to if there's going to be a bill, which line item you're going to be pulling it from. Because we have no money. Our group has no money. And maybe that's something as we go through that we will say for future charters that every 10 years they get 9 people and $9,000 or something. So if you could, on the next piece, I did look at the agenda again, and I do feel that we feel that there are substantive changes that we need to do. Some of the articles more than others. So I will propose that at our next meeting, in addition to hearing from groups that could assist us, that we really do try to do some work on Article 1.
Okay.
And then we will, at future meetings, we'll have a direction actually if we're going to go with any of the the consulting groups. But we should be able to get through Article 1. That does seems to be the easy article.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I did send out to the voting members, and I did not send it out to everyone. But there was a question raised, and when something goes out, we should not reply all, as that does break the rule of open meetings. But if it's something to confirm a date, that is certainly fine, but nothing substantive of what we're discussing. So then,
Thoughts and opinions can be sent out to all. Responses to those thoughts and opinions have to be done singularly.
But Sean, they can't even be done, even if they're done singularly, they can't be done one at a time through all 9. That also violates. We really have to do our discussions of substance in
Here.
public. Here.
Right.
here,
And if we're talking about whether the meeting's going to be at 6 p.m. or 6:15 p.m. or what the process is, there's no violation if we do reply to all. But if we're talking about real matters of substance, it's my understanding that even if you do it 1-to-1, you can't do it 1-to-1 and then 1-to-2 and then
9
1-to-3. You got to do that in public.
I have pulled up the calendar, and I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at their personal calendars. As you can see, in November, 2 of the Wednesdays I blocked out as one is Veterans Day, and one I put down as Thanksgiving prep because
Yeah, no.
Right.
yeah,
Not that day.
I cannot do it. In December, the yellow blocks that I had put as potential conflicts, those just happened to be during the weeks leading up to Christmas and between Christmas and New Year's. I didn't know if anyone had plans or what those dates look like. And then the dates in February and April, those are the school vacation weeks.
Right.
And so I didn't know if people had, it's so hard to think of plans when we're not traveling anywhere, but realistically, those are potential conflicts.
Yes.
So in looking at our next meeting, unfortunately, I was trying to go like, okay, if we went every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and there's no consistent pattern with kind of these gaps. And I don't want to give us too much time because before we know it, the holidays will be here and all of that. So would it be realistic for the 28th of October to potentially have those information or representatives from those potential consulting groups?
I'm sorry, what was the date again?
Wednesday, October 28th. It's 2 weeks.
That is the day after town meeting.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to meet the day after town meeting.
Oh.
Maybe the 4th.
November 4th.
I can't do the 4th, but don't let me be the deciding factor to hold the meeting. If everybody can do the 4th, then that's
I
fine.
can't,
I
I
can
can't do
probably,
the 4th.
I can probably jump in at 6,
Yeah.
but I would have to leave before 7.
Also, that's the day after a national election.
That's all right. We'll all be recovered from either the disaster or the non-disaster. We can meet on the day after the national election, do something useful for our town.
All right.
I'm going to be hungover that day, I'll tell you that.
Me too.
One way or the other.
I will too.
One way or the
There you
other.
go.
All right. Well, I will then say that our next meeting will be November 4th.
That's better.
And let's do that because, and then let's say that it's the 18th. We have to have more than one in November.
I agree.
I agree.
Heidi, just a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Because I will say, when I look ahead at this, school vacations and things like that, and December, as long as we're on Zoom, like as long as we can continue this format, I feel like that. Again, I think the question is, when do we decide that we want to go in person? do we have any sense that we're gonna do that in the next 3 or 4 months? If not, I think, you know, in my case, you know, thinking of kids and traveling on the school vacations, it's easier to do it from Zoom because I can do it from anywhere. So, you know, just a thought, and do we have a sense of when if we do want to be in person, or we're just gonna keep on this, you know, virtual format ongoing until we have other indicators from
Yeah,
the Board of
I
Health?
I think it's
The
gonna
Board of
be.
Health does not want in-person meetings.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Okay.
we just
I
keep
think,
going.
I think Zoom is terrific until we have a vaccine.
Okay, that works for me.
And
Still having school vacations? Just a question
We are
Probably should
having
make
school
answer to-
vacations, yes. I
Yes.
mean, the teachers are still working very hard right now, and they definitely, and the students are too. So, in fact, they went back hybrid.
So Heidi, which date in November are you proposing for the next meeting?
November 4th
Yes, I got that. And then what about
and then
after
the 18th.
the 18th? Yeah, that's.
Heidi, I won't be
weeks.
here on the 4th, just so that you know.
Okay, so we have potentially no Terry and no Sean, or a little
well,
bit
I
of
can be
Sean.
there. If it's at 6, I can do it.
Okay,
And I'm glad it's Zoom because on the 4th and the 18th, I will be in California helping my daughter move, but I'll be able to
Nice.
be here in Zoom.
all right,
So, and then I'm going to propose December 2nd and 16th.
okay,
I'm usually a little bit crazy, but I do think because it is Zoom, it's a little bit easier to just pull over in my corner of the living room
Mhm.
and plan accordingly. And then we'll look at, you know, hopefully by then we will have gotten through all the articles,
I think so.
and then we can talk about setting forth what do we want to do for workshops and things like that.
And Heidi, with that said, can we kind of think that probably we won't meet on the 23rd, 30th, just as likely?
I would like not to.
Yes, I'm thinking too. With 3 kiddos.
I
so.
mean, as far as the 18th goes in November, if I don't have anything crazy that day, I'll be doing that from home, because the Tuesday before, the Thursday afterwards, I have business annual meetings. So, you know, it's gonna be 3 meetings in a row, and my wife will basically hang me,
Yeah, we can't have that.
you know. And whatever we can do, November 30th is definitely out.
I don't think we have that.
What, for anything? That's her birthday.
November 30th or
That's her
December
birthday.
30th?
November 30th. That's her
Oh,
birthday.
We don't-
no, no.
No, I don't do
No.
anything on that day except take care
That
of it.
that is a holiday at your house.
Yes, especially this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we have the 4th and 18th of November, and then the 2nd and 16th of December, and that's all we've done so far.
I think that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 PM Eastern Standard Time, for those who will be in
Sorry I was
California.
late tonight.
Yes, yes.
Good
So it'll
point.
be 9 PM out there.
Sean, will you send
Oh,
out
3.
that whatever?
All right, 3.
I don't know whatever other people went through, but I went back to the 30th. That didn't work. You sent me something else. That didn't work.
Yeah, Terry,
Finally, the
we
last
had
one
a
did.
meeting beforehand on Zoom and it went over. So you got caught in some sort of Zoom limbo trying to.
I guess, yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah.
It
will we
won't-
No,
use the
It's
same
the same thing with me, Terry. I had to entirely close my browser to kill the previous Zoom meeting to get to this meeting.
So we use the same link?
Yeah, I'll send it out again. So I'll send
Okay.
it. I'll create a new link and send it out with these 4 dates that we decided tonight.
And you'll send us the new schedule, right, Sean?
I'm gonna send out the meeting invites tonight with for the 4 meetings we just agreed on.
Thanks.
Don't lose the email, people.
Very good.
Thank
You
you.
need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, that was Terry who made the motion and Sean McDonald who seconded the motion.
Yep.
And now a verbal
Roll call.
roll call. Heidi
Yes.
Brook, yes. Brock Cadero,
Yes.
Teresa Ham,
Yes.
Sean McDonald,
Yes.
Steve Mello,
Yes.
Brian O'Hare,
Yes.
Steve Taylor.
Yes, and thank you for tolerating my being late tonight. I appreciate all of you.
Yeah, well, that's only your only chance. After that, you get a tick.
I got you.
and Mary Waite.
Here and piggybacking on Steve, sorry about that.
And don't forget
Uh-huh.
Dave Cunha.
And
Hi,
Dave
Mia.
Cunha.
Yep, I'm on. Can you hear
There
me?
we go.
We
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you all.
Hey, everybody, have a good night.
All right.
Night.
Take care.
Too.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.